Have you ever tried to explain something that's just impossible to put into words? Well, that's the massive puzzle at the heart of one of the most profound and mysterious books ever written. Ibn Arabi's The Meccan Revelations. And today, we're going to dive right in and unpack some of its most incredible ideas.
So the man who wrote this, Ibn Arabi, was literally known as the greatest master. And this book, wow, this is his masterpiece. He claimed that its 560 chapters weren't even his own words, but that they were dictated to him directly by God while he was in Mecca. So you can see, we're not just talking about a book here. This is meant to be an entire universe of thought, all captured on paper.
All right, to help us navigate this ocean of a book, here's our plan. We're going to look at what it means to describe a God who is beyond all likeness. Then, we'll see how creation itself is a reflection of divine names. We'll get into the wild idea that humanity is a microcosm of the whole universe. We'll even take a peek into the world of spirits made of smokeless fire. And finally, we'll land on this really profound idea, the wisdom of knowing our own limits.
Okay, first up, the ocean of a book. Look, a work this huge can feel, well, pretty intimidating, right? But the secret to it all is realizing it all comes back to one single fundamental question. And here it is. How in the world do you describe the indescribable? I mean, really think about that for a second. If God is infinite, totally beyond our comprehension, how can our tiny, limited human language ever hope to capture that? Every word we use feels like trying to pour the entire ocean into a teacup. It just seems impossible. This is the central problem, the huge philosophical knot that Ibn Arabi sets out to untangle. So where does he even begin? Well, his solution starts by tackling this huge, age-old debate in theology. And trust me, if you can get your head around this one central tension, you've basically got the key to his entire worldview.
Okay, so on one hand, you have this idea called tanzi. This means God is transcendent, completely unique, totally different from anything and everything in creation, beyond comparison. But, on the other hand, you have tashbih. And this is the fact that sacred texts often describe God using very human-like terms, talking about a hand or fingers or settling on a throne. So what gives? How can God be both completely different from us and yet described in ways we can understand? It feels like a major contradiction, doesn't it?
For Ibn Arabi, that first idea, transcendence, is absolutely non-negotiable. This verse from the Quran is the bedrock. There is nothing like him, period. God can't be compared to anything we know. So if that's the case, we're back to the big question. What do we do with all those other verses that suggest some kind of likeness?
And this is where Ibn Arabi's genius just shines through. He says, look, you're taking it too literally. These phrases aren't physical descriptions. They are metaphors pointing to a much deeper truth. For instance, there's a saying that a believer's heart is between two of God's fingers. Ibn Arabi says this isn't about a divine hand. Think about it. What do we use our fingers for? Quick, subtle, precise control. So the phrase is a metaphor for the incredible speed and ease with which God can turn our inner states. The human-like language isn't meant to shrink God down to our size. It's a bridge to help our finite minds get a tiny glimpse of an infinite reality.
Now, this way of thinking doesn't just apply to words. It applies to, well, the entire universe. Which leads us to our next big question. How did a transcendent, unknowable God create this incredibly complex world that we see all around us? For Ibn Arabi, creation wasn't some random event. It all started with this beautiful idea that the divine was a hidden treasure that wanted to be known, and this desire caused God's own essential qualities, known as the most beautiful names, like the merciful, the all-knowing, the powerful, to just ripple outwards and manifest as the universe itself. So, in a way, everything you see is a reflection of these divine attributes.
And these names aren't just a random list. They work together in a cosmic sequence. Ibn Arabi calls the most important ones the architects of existence. Think of it almost like a divine assembly line. It all starts with the principle of life itself, the living. Then comes the knowing, which creates the blueprint for reality. Then other names come in to shape it, empower it, and finally, the generous brings everything into actual existence. It's this beautiful cascading process, with all of creation flowing directly from God's own qualities.
Now this leads to one of the book's most mind-bending ideas, and this one is all about us. If the entire universe is a reflection of the divine, where do human beings fit into this grand picture?
Ibn Arabi's answer is just stunning. A human being isn't just a part of the cosmos, but a complete mirror of it, a microcosm. He argues that everything out there in the vast universe has a direct parallel inside of you. God's throne in the heavens, that corresponds to your body. The sun, which illuminates the solar system, that's your power to think and reflect. He even connects a celestial orb of fire to the bile that helps you digest your food. The implication is staggering. If you could truly and completely know yourself, you would know the entire universe.
But this divine manifestation didn't just stop with humans and the physical world. Ibn Arabi also dives deep into an unseen reality that exists right alongside us, the world of the jinn.
So the jinn are this fascinating in-between creation. They're not purely spiritual like angels who are made of light, and they're not dense and physical like humans who are made from clay. They come from a fusion of smokeless fire, a mix of fire and air, and this origin defines their entire nature. The air makes them subtle, able to shapeshift, but the fire, that gives them a fiery temperament, pride, and a drive for power. They exist in this middle space. Even their food is subtle. They don't eat bones, but rather sniff the fatty essence the air carries from them.
So, we've explored the nature of God, the cosmos, ourselves, and even unseen spirits. But Ibn Arabi's journey doesn't just end there. It all leads to a final, profound conclusion about the very purpose of all this knowledge in the first place.
And here is the ultimate paradox. If we contain the entire universe within us, if we have these incredible faculties of intellect, reflection, and imagination, surely with all of this, we can reason our way to knowing God's essence, right? The answer, surprisingly, is no. Ibn Arabi concludes that our intellect, for all its power, eventually hits a wall that it just cannot cross. He uses this powerful phrase to capture the whole idea. The inability to perceive is perception. Let that sink in. True knowledge of God isn't about figuring him out with your brain. It's the moment your brain finally humbly admits that it can't. In that moment of recognizing your own limit, you have perceived the truth of God's infinite nature.
And this is the profound takeaway from Ibn Arabi's vast ocean of thought. He takes us on this incredible intellectual journey, building a systematic cosmos, only to show us that the final destination is a state of awe and wonder before a reality that will forever be beyond our full comprehension, a truly humbling and transformative idea to consider.